Well, there you all are. Well, my name's Rick Farron, and I'm glad you tuned in to the Six Screens Telenetwork tonight. Well, Anne Marie, an ex Jehovah's Witness out of Northern California, she's coming on in just a couple of minutes, and she has a program on this network called Touched by the Tentacles of the Watchtower. Have you been touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower? Well, we know that there's many, well, I'd say millions of people that have been touched. And for all you people listening in, we've got PMOs, we got PIMQs, we got all kinds of people listening into the program tonight. So why don't you muster up the courage, if you would, and call in. I'll put the number up on YouTube so you can see it. You can call into the program and say hello to Anne Marie. She'd love to hear from you. So we're going to bring Anne Marie on. Hello, Anne Marie.
Hello, my brother Rick. How is everything going this Six Screen Saturday?
Well, it's a good Six Screen Saturday. We got a lot of good things going on here, Anne Marie. You've been putting the program together the last couple of days. We got Fritz Springmeyer coming on at 9:30. We got a lot to talk about on JW World News. People are really connecting with your program too. Touched by the Tentacles. You had close to 2,000 people, Anne Marie, listen to that last week. So isn't that fantastic?
Now, there are a lot of words to describe how we're feeling because we, as a group of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, survivors of the Watchtower cult, we've been fighting a long time.
Anne Marie, it's so good to see things happening in a negative way for the Watchtower. It really is. It hasn't always been this way, as I tell the audience. When I first started going on 18 years ago, there wasn't this much negative, cynical news about the Watchtower. But as of late, it's just unreal, the amount of negative news coming across the internet.
Well, it's scary, and it's really, I almost feel sorry for them. Some guy posted on Reddit, I guess he was doing some marketing for I don't know, it sounded like he was at like a farmer's market or something. And he said, why me? These Jehovah's Witnesses posted right next, they set up their cart right next to my stand. And I wrote back, hey, you're lucky. Everybody's like, give them grief. Oh, they think they're this. And I'm thinking, why do we always see them as enemies? We don't know the struggle they're going through. They're in a very sad, sick, twisted, mind control cult, and they're not happy anymore. They can't fake it anymore. They can't convince themselves anymore that they're the happiest people on earth, but they're living in fear. Sorry for interrupting. I'm trying to work on that, my dear.
Well, we're looking forward to what we have to say tonight, so I'm going to cut you loose, and I'm here if you need me. And we'll work with that topic at first. If not, we'll come up with another topic. But let's ask the audience about protesting and what have you. And I'll leave it up to you. And if you want me to be the icebreaker, I'll come in.
Well, I love that because, I really enjoyed watching the video that Luke did of the protest that Constance and Dick Borghi were there, and Luke's wife Julie, and I didn't see Susan there, but you were there quite some time, and I was just really excited. And my husband said, "Oh my God, look, Rick's proving a protest." So I was really excited. So do you want to tell anybody now or whatever, or later, a little bit later?
Yeah, I'll tell people. Yeah, the question, of course, that we'll be asking our audience tonight is, have you ever seen protesters at your convention? I know I talked to you about it, Anne Marie, but you've only seen them once.
Let's introduce the show.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Show first, because you know what? I think I have Alzheimer's. I want to welcome everyone, including my very patient, dear spiritual brother, Rick Barron, into the show of Touched by the Tentacles. Today is our beautiful, spiritual, wonderful six-screen Saturday. It's spiritual to me because it makes me happy. Today is July 15, 2023, and we welcome all PMOs, those who are physically in but mentally out, who are still trudging along in that horrible organization, trying to get along. And also the PMQs, those are physically in, but mentally they're questioning. And all those who have actually escaped. This is the place to be for love, understanding, support, and validation. Today's topic is protesting. We know Rick is very heavy into protesting. He loves protesting, and he's good at it. So that's our subject for today. Please think about any time you may have seen protesting, whether it was on TV or where you were at a convention or whatever. And I'm looking forward to hearing Rick talk about protesting. My brother Rick, do you care to share?
Of course, absolutely. Well, you know, Anne Marie, I've been protesting now for 18 years. And I have to say that last Sunday at a regional convention up here in Lowell, Massachusetts, we had our 6 screens protest team go out. And boy, I have to tell you, the best protest I've ever participated in. Because I'm going to tell you, well, why do we protest to begin with? You know, many people say, Rick, don't even bother. All you're doing is feeding into the Jehovah's Witness persecution complex. Well, I don't totally buy that. I really, really don't. You know, people say, why bother? I mean, it's important that people are exposed to falsehood. You know, protests have changed the world. When people get together, I just wish we could get more people to come to these protests. It's very difficult to even get a handful of people. But boy, if we could ever get, 100 plus people, it would make all the difference in the world. But as far as protesting, I know it makes a difference. Now, not all the witnesses look at it as they don't look at it as totally bad. I think it's waking some up. We did very well on Sunday. Seriously, now let me tell you the difference. Let me tell you why this time was way better than any other time I ever protested before. I've been at regional conventions, protesting at Kingdom Halls, but I have to tell you something. This one really was significantly better, and the reason why I say that is there's an awful lot of PMOs. You know what that is, right? People who are physically in, mentally out. These are Jehovah's Witnesses that are going to the meetings just to kind of stay away from being disfellowshipped. They don't believe it mentally, but physically they go. And there was a lot of PMOs up here in Lowell, Massachusetts last Sunday. I have to tell you that. We never had so many people come by and smile at us. Now, do you guys get into body language? Well, body language is, you can tell a lot by body language. If you're at a protest and you're protesting against the Watchtower organization and you have Jehovah's Witnesses coming by smiling at you, well, what does that tell you? That means they like you, right? That means they like what you're doing. And then when you have Jehovah's Witnesses coming by and giving you a thumbs up, that's another good sign. And then Jehovah's Witnesses coming by and taking pictures of us. I never saw that before at any protest I ever went to, but there were numerous amounts of Jehovah's Witnesses slowing down, even stopping in front of us and taking pictures. Boy, I'll tell you. And I'm observing, now, of course, there were a lot of stone-faced, stoic Jehovah's Witnesses that would not even look at us. And let me just tell you, we had a fantastic site to protest at. The Songa Center, it's an arena, it's a college hockey arena up here in Lowell. And as the way to go out, we were right at the exit of the arena. So the witnesses had to come by, and they had to. And there was a red light, and people would have to stop, and they hated stopping right in front of us, but they had to. And they were just, I'll tell you, they were looking over. One woman, one PMO, she said she was a PMO. She stopped, and she was coming out of the convention early. She stopped the car, and she talked with us. She opened the window and said, boy, I am so glad you guys showed up. She says, these guys really have to be exposed. And I'm glad you're really exposing child sexual abuse. And she was so happy. She said she listens into the 6 screens, and it made her day to see that we were there protesting. So we had a really good time. And I'll tell you what, I came out of there. I felt so good Sunday afternoon. I couldn't believe a person could feel that good. And I felt wonderful. Boy, I'll tell you, I was getting an adrenaline rush. The people that were with us, our protesters, they were all happy and smiling. We all went out to dinner afterwards, and we just had a rocking awesome night. I'll tell you, it was absolutely wonderful. But I wanted to share that with you. We'll do more. In fact, I'll show you some clips of it. If you stay with us, I've got some video clips I'll share with you on the JW World News and talk a little bit more about it. And we do have a guest coming in too. So by all means, stay with us later. And I want you to talk to Anne Marie now. So muster up the courage, talk to Anne Marie. And what she wants to know, did you folks ever go to a convention or an assembly or any Watchtower event where there were protesters? She'd like to hear what you have to say. Anne Marie, back to you.
Yes, I would hear. I just wanted to know if I could take 20 seconds comment on what Brother Rick just said. I watched the video and I noticed one particular car cracked me up. It was a dark sedan and there were two people in the front looking straight ahead, but there was a young woman in the back seat. I couldn't tell if it was a teenage girl or a young woman. And she was looking at you guys, Rick, and just grinning for all she was worth. And that just made me happy. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And thank you so much for faithfully protesting. Thank you, Rick. Did somebody want to speak? I'm sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to comment on Rick's rendition of the protest. Anybody like to speak up? Star 6. Has anyone ever seen a protester or a protest at a convention or a Kingdom Hall, or maybe seen it on the news or somebody tell you about it? Aside from that, if you don't have a personal experience, does anybody have a personal thought on how they feel about Jehovah's Witnesses, seeing ex-Jehovah's Witnesses protesting the Watchtower? Some people seem to think it's a good idea. Some people say, oh, it just kind of triggers the Jehovah's Witnesses persecution complex, which personally I don't give a flying rat's behind. Everything trickles down. They get annoyed and offended over anything and everything anyway. They say you can't plant a seed unless you disturb the soil. So that's the way I feel. If protesting bothers them, I hope the next thing they think of is, why does it bother me? I mean, if they really think they... Well, hello, my brother. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Yeah, I want to comment on the protest here. I think this is going to be very interesting this Sunday night here. The following Monday, I observed when the protest was going on and so forth. And the following Monday, on the Fox News here, the radio news, which I very seldom hear. This is the first time maybe in 20 years I've ever heard them mention in the morning news on Fox News here on the local station, the Jehovah's Witnesses and the pedophile problems. And they talked about Michelle Henry over in Pennsylvania. They talked about Pennsylvania cases, and I think about approximately 14 or so that are being indicted over there for pedophilia. So it made the news, and if you want to know if it does any good for people to come out and be heard and the people to be protest, you bet it does. And I'm glad it happened. So it was, like Mr. Farron said, he thought it was one of the best yet, but I feel it was very successful. I feel that people took notice more than you expected. So, and my second reason for calling is I finally, after a long lull here and long time of hit and miss, I finally got a hold of Jay here that used to be on this program, and he is holding his own. He can't talk very long. He only talked a few minutes and so forth, and I have a hard time getting a hold of him right now because I got to get through to him via the nursing home. He doesn't have any private phones anymore that's working good. And that one good phone that he had, somebody stole it. So, and he's not been able to get it replaced yet. So, but
no.
even if he did, I don't know if he could handle it. So.
Yeah, it was his birthday on the 5th, and we posted on his Facebook page, but if he doesn't have a phone anymore, then he never knows that he wasn't forgotten. And Ken, I want you to know I really do appreciate your calling, and
well,
you know, Jay is such a wonderful man. He really is.
We're winning points. We're getting points on the board here of people coming out and speaking out and protesting and everything. As a matter of fact, I wish I could have been there. I would have been, but unfortunately I couldn't. And I just hope that we start getting some protests closer to home. As a matter of fact, in addition to the Watchtower Society, I hope that we can get a lot of protests, you know, on other issues. I'm not going to get into those tonight because we're just talking about the Watchtower issue right now. So I'm just going to go there. And I just hope we get the protest spirit that goes around the country and so forth. And by the love of Pete, we got to turn some stuff around because these people that's coming on 6 screens, they're not just ex-witnesses. I mean, they're crime victims, the ones that were abused by the Watchtower. I mean, they're victims of violent crime, and we want to put an end to this right now. This business of raping the women and the children and all that, it's going to have to stop. You know. I just wish that one of these pedophiles or these rapists would attack a country girl that's got a shotgun in her hand. Because I'm getting kind of fed up with it. You go on the internet, you go on the news, that's all you hear. And then in New York recently, now they just caught another serial killer and so forth. It's not related to the 6 streets, of course, but the crime and violence is not only getting bad in the Watchtower Society, and they're doing it to their members. It's getting bad all over and all that. Makes you wonder if you're even going to be able to come back from grocery shopping, or maybe you walk out your door, you know, again, and, you know, you never know if you're going to walk out the door or come back for the first or last time, or what the deal is. It's getting pretty bad. So it's got to stop, and it's time that the people start getting up there and saying, hey, wait a minute, we're not going to put up with this stuff anymore.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Ken. I just like to concentrate on anything to do with Watchtower, because if we start dragging up other stuff, then it minimizes, in my mind, it minimizes just how bad things are in Watchtower, because sometimes if you can even get a Watchtower, right, a faithful Watchtower member to even acknowledge that the Watchtower has problems, they kind of blow it off with, well, you know, there's problems everywhere, and, you know, there's pedophilia everywhere, nobody's perfect. You know, they just blow it off. So that's why, personally, I try not to focus on any other thing, because if this is really God's organization, the truth, the only true religion, you would assume that it would be special, that it would be seen as a shining light over and above the chaos and the sick, twisted things that we see in the world. They should be above all that, and they're not. In fact, unfortunately, we're finding out that in a lot of ways they're worse. They're worse because they're hiding behind their spiritual, theocratic smiles. Oh, we're so holy. You know, it's just like, you know, Jesus said, you know, you look good on the outside, but you're like whitewashed grave. You look good on the outside, all clean and pure, but inside you're full of filth and rotting flesh. You're disgusting. But hey, if you don't see it, it's not there. And that's kind of how Watchtowerites are. Oh, we don't have a problem. Oh, those are all just apostate-driven lies. Same old thing.
Well, see the problem with people, one last comment here. The problem with people is they see the stuff going around. They say, "Oh, it's going around all over the place. What can you do about it?" You know what you can do about it, man? You can say, "Not on my watch and not on my territory. You get that stuff out of here." Somebody's got to stand up, because look at the good we're doing right now by getting up and standing up. We just got through talking about it. I'm not going to reiterate it. The good that's being done when we're standing up to this stuff and so forth. So, okay, I'll tell you what. I'll say goodbye for now, and we'll take the next caller in, and maybe we'll talk to you a little later.
Well, thank you so much, Ken, and I appreciate what you said about we need to stand up. But it's unfortunately true that people from Watchtower have been waking up and standing up for years and years and years. Look what happened to dear Bill Bowen. Look how they treated Rick. What was Rick and his wife Inez's big crime? He actually found in the New World Translation the true plan of salvation was through Christ. And that was his terrible, wicked sin, because in Watchtower, the number one sin is not being loyal to the party.
Hello, Anne-Marie?
Yes, go ahead, my dear. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is Kurt. How are you this evening?
Oh, my brother Kurt. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. I'm not sure how long protests have been going on against the Watchtower. Actual protests. I'm not certain. You may have seen, you can get it on YouTube, Jeremiah Films. And they have a documentary on the Watchtower. It's quite old. This documentary may go back as far as 15 years ago, maybe longer. But
1986.
It goes back that far. I wasn't certain. It's been a long time since I've watched it. But if you remember, you watched it at the beginning of it. They showed protests back in the 70s. At least it looked to me like it was back in the 70s at Brooklyn. Out on the street, people hold signs. It was up.
Yeah. No, it was the 80s. It was the 80s, Kurt. And I really want to thank you for bringing up that film, because that is the very first time I ever saw a group of protesters, and that definitely was done in the 80s. And the film was released by an ex-Jehovah's Witness elder and his wife. And it looks very almost childishly done, but they didn't have the technology, and they did it all themselves. They paid for it. But the thing is, that's the first time I ever saw it. It was quite a protest of at least 10, maybe more, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, right in front of Watchtower headquarters in Brooklyn, New York. Please forgive me for interrupting, but thank you for bringing that up. Please continue, my brother.
Oh, you too, and thank you for all that information. I think you're right. It probably, was in the 80s. I think I was a little off there when I said in the 70s, because like you mentioned, the film, it was good, but it was not Hollywood, type of video. But the documentary was really good. Also, the only protest I ever seen was somewhere, I don't know, between 75, maybe 77. I'm not certain of the year. I know I was married in 74. Exactly, we were married. There had been 3 fleshly sisters from up around, I think they were from Lowell, Massachusetts. And they came down here to work where the need is great, unassigned territory, etc., at our Kingdom Hall, and at the Pikeville, Kentucky Kingdom Hall. But at any rate, somewhere or sometime around, like I said, 75 to 77, in that area, at a district convention, the 3 sisters, were protesting.
And it was such a shock to me. That's the first and only time I ever seen protesting, at an assembly or whatever. And so I thought I'd bring that up. I don't know what happened to those sisters, but they were so good. So they were special pioneering, all three of them. And at our Kingdom Hall, everybody just really loved them. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a 1975 thing or not. I'm not sure. Another thing, protesting against the organization, as far as I know, it's always peaceful. To my knowledge, it's always peaceful. And we all know that protesting different things all over the world, sometimes quite violent. I know in France, I don't know if that's over yet or not, I'm not sure. This most recent protest in France over the shooting of that young man. I'm not sure what's going on now. But anyway, I'm glad we got to talk. Maybe somebody else wants to talk to you. And I always enjoy your program. I always listen to you, okay?
Well, Kurt, you are such a sweetheart and a gentleman. You are always a pleasure when you come on. And as I told you before, back years ago when you used to be on all the time, and I'd really missed you. I really had missed you. Do you have, Kurt, while you're still here, do you have a personal opinion or feeling toward ex-Jehovah's Witnesses protesting, like those three sisters you mentioned? And how do you feel in general? Do you feel it's good, not good, does any good, doesn't do any good? How do you feel?
Well, that's a good question. Today, I think it's good and effective today. Now, if you would have asked me that 2 years ago, I would have argued that it was a step too far. But today, as I mentioned, I think it's a good thing to do. I would probably, I think, join in myself, but I'm isolated here and sort of homebound because of my health. But yes, my mind has been changed on it, and the key, well, one of the keys anyway to it is that it's peaceful. If I'm in a protest, like Rick was the other last Sunday, and someone wanted to stop and talk, a witness wanted to stop and talk, that would be a good opportunity. It don't happen very often, but at least the people that drove by his protest there, which I would assume was most of the people at the convention last Sunday, drove past there. I would have to say that just about all of them would have to have taken note of the signs he had, and the signs were important. What did the signs say? I think they spoke the truth. So to answer your question, today my feeling is it is effective, and it's logical, and almost you might say righteous to do this against the organization. That's how I feel today. Thanks for asking.
Well, I appreciate your sharing that because I wasn't sure how I felt about protesting. But two things always stick in my head about protesting. One, you can't plant a seed without disturbing the soil. Of course, that's a metaphor. And I just remember, I think it was Dr. Martin Luther King, when he was fighting against racism and prejudice and the evils, he said, you can't change someone's mind until you can reach their heart. So, if somebody was out there yelling and screaming and saying bad things about the Watchtower and the evils that they do, the programming of a mind control cult is very powerful. And Watchtower, I think, is probably, just in my opinion, probably one of the most powerful mind control cults there are, because the more you try to show them a mirror of what they themselves are, the more they don't see, the more they get defensive, the more they attack. And it's just, like they say, they just no one is as blind as a man who will not see. So when Martin Luther King said, you can't change their mind, you have to change their heart. And I see Rick year after year, protest after protest, out there with love and enthusiasm and a smile, positivity, and whoever is able to be with them, showing the same kind of thing. But little by little, they know, and it doesn't matter what we see on the outside. We don't know their struggle on the inside.
Very, very calming. Lottery on a drop of member. Cannot place this thing without disturbing the soul. And that metaphor is used as a metaphor. And it has an application to the protest. The protest. Also, one last thing, the protest would against Watchtower, like the last Sunday, we can be fairly certain that some of those people are not aware of what's happening with the Watchtower, the blood issue, the pedophilia. Some are not aware of it. So that itself would make active witnesses, or at least aware to see those signs. Also, someone that is to be like, are they not in full context? They're not even making sense of the sentence. It says, in sense of Jesus, what will do? Well, you do not judge for man or for the Lord who is with you in the judgment. They are completely the scriptures, and they're like, what is this? It's so necessary. Yeah, good point. Good point, Jerry. I agree. Well, scriptures, the Bible, that's it. What could have to do with this?
They're really good at using very manipulative language and presenting a certain picture in your mind, and then
For anyone to pay attention to it, I think a lot do, especially someone who's interested in the Watchtower. And from a protest side, the example Rick had, it can like people gets into to almost extremes and do other things to investigate what they're getting into when they get into the Watchtower. Anyway, thank you, Marie. I'm going to take a little break here, and maybe some other people want to.
side of the sword that story is backed up by God's word. That is so wrong. But as far as judging and punishing and forgiving and having compassion, isn't it strange that Watchtower took out John 8 verses 1 through 11, where it talks about the adulteress who was about to be stoned to death, and Jesus said, "Let them do it brimstone first stone." And he asked the woman, they all walked away. He asked the woman, "Is there no one left to judge you?" And she said, "No, sir, not one." And Jesus said, "Neither do I judge you." So to me, Watchtower is so they judge for every little thing and micromanage. Is it me, my phone, or is there an echoing going on?
We've got some issues going on here, Anne Marie. We just have some issues trying to straighten it out. So just bear with us. Uh, we don't know what happened here, but we're gonna end, we're gonna just end it and start over again. So don't worry, just stay with us. Don't go anywhere.